Today we will start Spring Beans concept. Okay, first Spring core module concept we will start. Spring core will be starting now. Okay, so Spring is having basically three approaches. Okay, Spring coding we can do it in three styles. In three approaches we can do. Okay, we can do it in three ways: XML based, annotations, and Java programmatic configurations. We can handle in these three ways: XML and via annotations and using programmatic approach. We are going to see the first approach, basic approach of Spring core module. Okay. Yeah. Now coming to first concept, Spring Beans. We'll discuss about Spring Beans in the core concept. Spring Beans. What is Spring Bean? Why should I start with this one first? Now, basically the end goal, once after learning all the stuff, what you are going to implement? Backend classes. After learning all the concept from Spring Boot, microservices, whatever you learn, you are going to implement your MVC classes. As we are discussing, keep on discussing, right? From day one, you are going to work on this MVC only. Controller, service, DAOs you will be implementing for any application, right? For any application, the sample use case given here, right? If I have a registration page, front end, if it is handled or implemented in Angular or React or simple HTML, backend portion will be covered using controller services and DAOs. MVC backend classes we need to write. Usually at least three classes: controller, service, and repository. For every front end page, we will have these three classes minimum. Controller will read data, service will handle business code, repository will do CRUD operations. Instead of writing everything together, right? Logical separation we are doing: read operations to controller, business code to service, CRUD operations to repository for easy maintainability. We understand from MVC. Now, whichever classes by using Spring you will create for the backend implementation, all of them are Spring Beans. All classes. If you take an example of registration page, name, email address, I wanted to register. For that, I want a backend page to implement it. I want to implement some backend classes, controller, service, repository or DAO. All these backend classes, all these backend classes will be your Spring Beans. Everything or every class is a Spring Bean. Beans is nothing but, as per their definition, is simple. Whichever class you implement and which is managed by Spring IOC container, the object creation, if it is taken care by Spring IOC container, then they are calling it as Spring Bean. All the backend classes are Spring Beans only. All backend classes. If you write 100 classes out of 100, all 100 classes are your Spring Beans only, because for a simple use case I'm explaining here. For simple registration page, I need to write a controller to read. So from here, we will send data to this controller. Then controller will forward it to service. Service will forward to repository. So these three classes we will write. Apart from this, sir, I want one have validation class. You may have one validation helper. Again, that is also will be your Spring Bean. Sir, here addition to service, I want to write some email sending logic after successful registration. That is also your Spring Bean. That's it. So all the utility classes, helper classes, controller services, configurations. Sir, for creating repository, I want to implement connection pools. Some connection pool implementation I have implemented, sir. For connection pool, I have created some classes. Those classes also.
What is use of connection pool, sir?
That's again a different discussion. Connection pools to maintain pool of connections. Traditionally, traditional Jdbc, if you know, we open one connection from database and we close it, right? After completion of our job, we open connection and we close connection. But in real time, that should not happen. Directly, you should not open and you should not close. During the application startup itself, we will build connections. We'll bring all the database connections into pool. Via pool, your repository will access, so that you will not see any performance gaps and you will not see any runtime SQL exceptions due to connection unavailability. Sometimes, let's say now you are 6 here, 10 here. If I install my Oracle database, right, by default, it will provide 20 connections. Let's say in this session, if 50 people you joined or 100 people you joined, without connection pool, if I implement my repository logic just by reading database connection from DB, and if I give this registration page to all of you, all your 50 or 100 people, and if I ask you to click submit button at a time, for first 20 users, you may see success. Remaining 80 users operations may fail. Because for first 20 users, DB will give connection. To open connection, it will take some time. Later, repository will execute insert operation. Finally, connection will return back to database. Meantime, the remaining 80 users will not wait. I mean, this repository cannot hold them. Instead of holding them, it will say, hey, I don't have connections. Accept this exception. It will send exception instead of saving it. But if I have a connection pool can hold them also. It's a beautiful concept and very important concept for real time, right? Especially where you have CRUD operations, connection pools are very important. Either you go with the JDBC or you go with the Hibernate or JPA, without connection pool, we cannot imagine any application. Okay. Anyway, so the concept is here. whatever classes you are writing, controllers or service, repository, any helper classes, utility classes, anything. For all these classes, container is Spring only. Container Spring means objects. End of the day, when it is a Java class, right? Object. You have written class. But to work that class, you need to create an object. Have a registration page to fulfill that registration operation. I have controller, service, repositories, connections, some other utility classes I have. End of the day, I need to create objects to them. To function them, I need to create objects to them. So controller object will be called by front end. Controller object may use validation helper for validation. Controller object may need service object so that whatever data controller object is having, it will send to service object. Service object may send email after successful registration, so it needs email object. Every communication will happen via objects only in Java. That we are very clear, right? If you want to call any class method, you need an object to that class until unless it is a static method. And to call repository methods, save record, update record, delete record, you need object here. To bring connection pool objects you required here. End of the day, you need objects. Who will be creating objects? If it is a Spring framework, Spring IOC will create objects or Spring containers. Spring containers will create object. Spring containers will create object. Spring container will create object. As Spring container is going to create all these classes objects, I can call these classes as Spring Beans. Each and every class which you are implementing and which you are depending on IOC container. Without IOC container, you cannot create these objects. Sir, I created classes A to Z. All the classes objects IOC is going to create? Yes. For all your classes, IOC only will create objects. That's why we call all that classes as Spring Beans. So in a single line, I can say all your backend classes are Spring Beans only. All your backend classes are Spring Beans only. All your backend classes are Spring Beans. So if I give a small example, this is how you need to create a bean. This is how you need to configure it. This is applicable for each and every class. Sir, you told me to, or you trained us to create a simple student object or an employee object, and you configured it into XML file and you are running it. I'm not able to imagine, sir, for what all our classes it will be applicable. You should not say that because I'm upfront telling you every class is a Spring Bean. It is applicable for each and every class. Okay, to fulfill our use cases. Mostly, right, you will have front end and front end handling back end classes. Mostly, right, these three classes: controller, service, repository. Apart from this, you will have some utilities. But when you really implement a use case, right, you will see them. Okay, if a use case with having lot of validations, instead of implementing in controller, you may bring them to separate class just by following solid principles, right? Single responsibility. Controller will do controller operation. Validations don't do here. If you can separate it, right, it will be more reusable. Okay. If you are into a position like lead position or a senior developer, you should suggest your team also. Okay. Hey, don't keep every logic in one single class. As much as you can separate them so that it will be easy to maintain. It will be easy to maintain and we can achieve a lot of reusability also. Okay. Anyway, we are going into different discussion again. So all the classes, whichever classes you will implement for backend, time being consider all of them are Spring Beans. Now, sir, how to create those objects, Spring Beans objects? You are saying there are three approaches. The old framework approach is XML. First, initially when Spring framework started, right? Spring started with XML based configurations. Okay, it was very popular, XML based configurations. So how to work, sir, if I want to create a project and uh, you know, execute an example, how can I do it? Let me share. We are into this only, right? Just a minute. This is our Git page, okay? I'm sharing. Hope my screen visible.
Yes.
I'm sharing this our blog only, okay? I designed it for you, okay? So here you can see all the Spring jar files. This is not for Spring Boot, okay? Download all the jar files from here just to learn old approach. These all are the old framework examples. Before Spring Boot, right? We used to depend on only these modules, XML based annotations also given, but the implementation style is completely different. You can see almost 58 examples here. Okay, anyway, this is old approach. I'm going to start with old approach only, how we used to, create basic Spring Beans and configure them so that you can relate it when I start Spring Boot, right? Or annotations approaches. Easily you can relate it, how it used to work in a basic Spring framework, how advanced Spring Boot is. Spring Boot also, like how they simplified the pain, you can understand easily. You can see how they made it simplified, how easy it is, you can realize it, okay? First thing, download these jar files, okay? Download these jars before even starting any example, right? Do you all have Java in your machine? Java and Eclipse or STS, you should all have, okay? Install. If you don't have, install it. Let me share my complete window. I'm just listing them here. Okay, you need to have Java 8, 17 in your machine. For now, get Java 8. Okay, Java 8 and 17, and install Eclipse or STS. Eclipse, you all must have this one, okay? And STS. If you have STS, that is enough. Fair enough. STS is useful for both Spring Boot and this old approaches also. Or if you want to have both also, you can have. Okay, this is very important. Or you can have Eclipse also. Okay, install them. First, I'm going to download these jar files. All the jar files I clubbed here so that you need not to, for beginning, right? Starting with Spring, you need not to really worry. Download these jar files. First step. Okay, I'm not going to write any steps here. Do this, that, because this video is with you. You can rewind this video, pause whichever steps I'm saying, right? And you can replay. And here you have basic object creation example. This is simple core Java example. I will start with that one. Okay. Now I'm opening my STS here. I'll create a separate workspace. Spring Boot microservices 03 2025. Okay. So workspace is getting loaded. Do you all know basic Java application with main method,
Yes, sir.
create classes and call methods? You know, right? Yeah. That is very basic expectation, okay, from you. How to create object using new keyword. Class dot for name approach, maybe most of you may not aware. I will show you that. Object creation, multiple techniques we have, right? Objects we can create by using new keyword, by using class dot for name, by using clone approach, right?
Sir, I have only Java 17. Is that enough or still need Java 8 for setting this?
I would recommend to practice old examples, at least a few, right? I'm not sure in 17 you're able to run them or not. Let me see here.
So we can have two Java in one machine, sir. It's possible.
Yeah, you can have all the versions. I used to have Java 17, 21, Java 8. You can have any number of versions. Even projects also, microservices implementations also, right? All microservices may not have same version.
If we
Okay.
have multiple Java, we have to run with the correct JRE, whatever JRE is.
You have to go, preferences or while creating project, after creation of project, you should choose your runtime, compilation, build JDK versions. Thoroughly, you should check every time while you are building and running.
Right.
That's happening with us now in current application. Okay. We have multiple versions. Few services we are running only on 11, few on 17. I think few on 8 also. Because of other dependencies, because of other technology dependencies. Okay, first core Java example I'm giving. Simple core Java example. We're all talking about objects only here, okay? We know how to create classes. That's not a big deal. How to create objects is a big deal here. Java 17 or Java 8, whatever version it is. Simple core Java example. I'm creating a package, new. Just created one package here and writing hello world. Hello world. So this is the definition of simple Java class, right? Simple Java class. Hello world, simple Java class. Now here I have a method public void hello. This is the definition of simple method system.out.println. Hello world. Now I have simple Java class. If I want to run this class method, end of the day, for any use case, whichever classes you implemented, those classes will have some methods. You need to execute that methods to achieve your requirement, to achieve your feature, whatever you implemented. So here I have a simple Java class, which should say hello. I implemented it. But when I can really able to run this method, when this object got created into my JVM, indirectly in my RAM, this code should load it into this machine RAM. How it will load? When you run Java command, right? Java space hello world, this class will be loaded with the help of class loaders into my JVM. It will be loaded into my JVM. Load into JVM, indirectly RAM. And processor can help you now. Once it's loaded into JVM, processor can help you to pick up this method and execute. But where is that? So you need to have a main method, right? Okay, sorry. So now we know when we run, it can load, but it will load it into JVM. But to start, no main method is required. Processor will not pick up without main method. So I need a main method class, or within the same class also, you may have main method. We know the importance of main. I want to explain, right? This is the main method. So here you can create hello world object. Hello world reference is equal to new hello world. So processor execution will start from main method. So as soon as it reaches to this line, it will see, okay, hello world class, he's asking me to load it into RAM. Okay, it will load. What it will load? Whatever function you implemented here, it will load. This hello function will load it into your machine. Now I'm asking the process, execute that function, hello world dot hello method. So it will execute it. As soon as you ask process to start Java application, it will come to this line, it will create object and it will go to hello function and it will execute it. Done. Your class is loaded and your method is executed. Same thing to achieve in Spring. Same thing to achieve in Spring. You have to load all these classes, whichever classes by using Spring you implemented. Then you should be able to execute methods. But you are not going to deal with objects directly. You are not going to create these objects directly, because if that object creation job taken care by you, you cannot apply any features that they provided as part of framework. Simple example, if you try to create object for any class, for every request, it will become prototype. Let's say, going back to this example, registration page. Okay. So this registration is happened by millions of users. Consider Aadhaar registration. And you implemented a Aadhaar controller. And this Aadhaar controller object you are creating manually by using new keyword. If 1 million request or 1 billion request, if it comes from here, 1 billion controller objects it will create in your RAM. So unnecessary. As every web application will maintain threads, objects is not required that many objects. So it will obviously degrade your application performance. You need not to create that many objects. So if I ask you to create a singleton, then you may need to write one design pattern to cover it. So as you know, singleton, you may cover it. What about the remaining thousands of best design patterns that Spring following? Are we able to cover them? We are not. First, we are not experts to cover all that patterns. Though you are able to cover it also, you need to test it thoroughly. Today it may work, going forward it may fail. But whereas Spring, it is designed by Spring team and used by so many applications, used by, right, thousands, millions of applications. If they have identified any issues also, they must have reported to Spring team. Spring must have resolved them, right? So the best tested and the best patterns followed framework, so that you need not to worry about creation of your own design patterns. You need not to worry about, best practices that they followed. You just follow what they are saying. That's it. It will give all the best possible output to your application. You need not to, you know, um, hit your head to maintain best things for your application framework. Whatever saying, follow it. Now, if I wanted to create one more object, let me put a constructor here. Constructor indirectly, it will execute at the time of object creation. Hello world constructor. So if I need multiple objects of hello world, I'll be creating like this. Hello world constructor executed 2 times because you created 2 times. If I create 3 times, 100 times, as many times as you create, it will create that many objects. You need to be an expert to make it singleton. But go with Spring, you need not to be expert. Use Spring, do whatever they are saying. It will make your class singleton. Same example, I'll be writing by using Spring now. I'll creating again a simple Java project. Okay, I'll go with 1.8. Spring object, the same object creation, I'll do with Spring. As I said, right, I'll use old approach here. As I need to use Spring framework, right, I can write my classes here. Same classes I'll bring here. But object creation task, I will give it to Spring this time. I don't create manually here. Manually, I don't want to create it. I don't want it. Yeah. So manually, I don't want to create. This time I will give it to Spring. So as I wanted to give it to Spring, I need Spring libraries. Experts given classes I need to bring here, right? So I need to add all of the libraries here. Just we downloaded it, right? We have downloaded them. Okay, these are the libraries. I'll show you the list of libraries later, but I'm just adding them. Experts, framework libraries I added here. Now I can start using their classes. Some classes I can use from their framework. So this is my hello world class here. This is my actual business. This is my actual requirement. It need to say hello. Object creation earlier, I used to create it manually here. Now I wanted to give the task to Spring. How? First, you need to have one XML here. Old approach I'm going to show you, right? XML. For XML, I'll create one package. Resources. I'll create XML file here. Spring.xml, or you can name it whatever it is. Hello world XML. Simple XML file. Here you need to configure your beans. Means your classes bean. Every class can have a ID, unique ID. Hello world class name. Package name dot your class name. Hello world. That's it. XML based configurations are done. And you can load this into IOC container. Earlier I used to create object, right? I don't want to create object using new keyword. IOC will create. IOC will create here. Let's ask IOC to create. How? Application context you can use. Application context or bean factory. There are two approaches. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context. This is the IOC container class. Okay. Now your XML path you need to pass here. Resources slash hello world. Okay. Now will it going to create my object, sir? Yes, obviously. Run this now. I'm asking my process to start execution. My process started execution. I know I'm expecting this error. Okay. Because you loaded your XML file. Your XML file doesn't have any DTD. Parsing, right? XMLs will be parsed. Means read by using a Sax parser API, or there are multiple types of APIs. Okay. So Sax parser is trying to parse this XML file. Before that, it is asking where is the DTD or where is the schema? DTD or XSD? DTD or XSD we need to put here. So in this DTD or in this XSD, we will tell these are the allowed tags. What it means, I can create my own tag, right? My name, I can put Naveen ID, something. If I put, how it will work? It should not work, right? As this is a predefined framework, it will expect some tags. So instead of using, 30 tags here, I should use as it is the tags available in the Spring. Who will tell to the parser, these are the only allowed tags, either DTD or XSD. So that you need to put here. That is what it is saying. You didn't provide me DTD, so your file may be dirty. So please provide me DTD. So I'll go to Spring Beans. In their jars itself, they given that required DTDs also. I'll just copy from there. I can use 2x or 3x. Spring Beans DTD file. It is there in the, basically you are not going to use them widely. Okay. For 1-2 examples, you use it. Under Spring Beans DTD file is there. Go there. Line number 36 to 37. DTD will be there. Copy. Bring it to your Excel. Thus, you are good. Let's start. Hello world constructor executed. How? I did not use any new keyword. Now, instead of doing by myself, I given that job to IOC container. Whichever classes across I'm going to implement, all these classes, if I load it into IOC container via XML or annotations, right? My container is going to create objects to them. Same thing happened here. I loaded this XML. In this XML, I have my class. Whenever I load here via this class path XML application context, this is the IOC class. Don't think what is IOC. IOC is different. No, this is the IOC container. Class path XML application context. It is not a special software. It is a simple Java class. But it is capable to maintain any big application. Don't look at as a simple Java class. This class is used by every Spring application. Any big application, any big configuration handled by this class only. Okay. So this class is reading your hello world XML file and creating object for your hello world class. Like this, you can have, thousands of classes and load them. I will create one more class. Okay. Something. I'm just, don't mind. I am using your names. Consider those are all your classes. Okay. You can configure them here with the different IDs. Vijay, V, class name beans dot Vijay. Lavanya, L. Ramesh, R. Now all these beans are here. These are not errors. Okay. ID is not able to, read DTD or download. It's okay. Don't worry about that. Go to main, run it again. See all the classes objects it is creating. What is the difference, sir? I also can create using new keyword, right? Why you are giving the task to IOC container? You also can create, but you cannot apply all the best possible patterns. Just I'm talking about singleton only. But there are so many as such container will follow and provide tree. Can we able to do them? No. Spring only can do them. Just you create your business implementation and bring that class here. That's it. Add that class here. Object creation, the remaining stuff will be taken care by IOC container. Let me prove that here. Get bean, there is a method called get bean to get the bean which is already created. Okay, so which is already created. Hello world bean I want, right? Hello world bean ID is HW. When you call this, you will get hello world bean. Hello world dot. You can ask IOC container, hey, give me this object. I want to execute hello method. So it is given to you. You can print hello world method. So like this, you call this 100 times also. You call this, you get hello world object. Earlier, I was calling, right, by creating multiple objects, new keyword multiple times. But this time, I'm asking IOC container as and when required. IOC container will be in live. It will not die. It will be in live until you shut down your application. So as it is in live, as and when you require hello world object, you can ask, it will provide you, but it will not create multiple objects. Hello world, you can see method you are able to execute 3 times, but object created only one time at the time of first startup itself. Sir, I started my application today. It is not going to shut down until next 1 year. Will there be only one object of hello world? Yes. Sir, there are millions of requests came to hello world method, and hello world method executed more than 1 million times. Still only one object it used? Yes. See how much burden it is reducing on your RAM. If I was creating objects every time, I need to load every time via my class loader. Imagine it need to load that class via whatever bus internally, wires or networks into your RAM. It should allocate the memory. Then from that memory allocation, you need to call your method. All that burden it got reduced, right? It was loaded when the time at the time of your application startup. That's it. You can keep on call the methods from the same class millions of times also. Only one object created for you. To achieve that, if you don't know best practices, best ways to create singleton object, you cannot handle it yourself. But framework did for you on the fly. Simple.
By default, it's a singleton. It will use a singleton, sir.
Yes. I am even not worried about singleton, but I'm just giving a simple example to you, right? What container is doing for you. So this is how you need not to even you need not to create objects. Objects creation will be done by your IOC container. Sir, this much logic in real time are we going to write loading this XML into all this blah blah blah? No. As I showed one application yesterday, right? Internally, the framework designed, Spring Boot framework designed in such a way that you need to just to write your classes. This is old approach, right? Old approach and simple example. What stuff additionally I have written here, I'll show you. I have created this hello world class. This is my business class anyway. This I need to create even if you use Spring Boot also. I added libraries here, right? These libraries I no need to add if it is a Spring Boot. We can avoid adding libraries in Spring Boot. You can avoid creating, such a loading XML and all this stuff. You can avoid this XML based configurations. As you have 1, 2 classes, it looks okay for you. But in general applications, we have thousands of classes. When you have those many classes, XML will become very weird to maintain and to see. Okay, so you need not to do this job also. Just you need to create your class. That's it. Hello world you need, create it. And whatever endpoints you want to call hello method from REST API. So just put get endpoint. That's it. Get mapping, post mapping or put mapping. Bus, you are done. You are good. Don't worry about the framework. Adding library, creating XML, configuring, all that is taken care by Spring Boot framework. That much advanced it is. Yesterday I given you example, right? Let me repeat the same example. Spring web application I'm going to create here. Spring web application, right? One web application for you I'm creating. So we will be adding, this is Spring Boot way, okay? This is Spring Boot approach. So one, okay, application name is demo. Okay, fine. So one demo application is generated for you. One demo application is generated for you. All the required Maven dependencies automatically. Spring libraries also came here. You see, Spring starters. Just now we added one just before, right? In the first application, we added Spring Beans jar file. You can find all that jars also here. By default, Maven is downloading. SGS did that help to you. Where it is, I'm not able to see Spring context Spring Core. You can see them here. Spring Beans also should be here somewhere. Okay. So the dependencies came to you and no XML, zero XML configurations here. So main method class also it generated for you. Earlier we written this, right? Spring Boot saying, no, you don't do anything. Just focus on your implementation. I want one controller to say hello to my users. You can write it. Keep that controller here. Hello world. Just you need to put whichever endpoint you want. REST controller. Public string. Hello. At the request param. Name. I'm expecting a name. Default name. If you don't enter any name, default name RBU I will take. And finally it will return hello. Get mapping. So to test this one from browser, you will be entering like this: HTTP localhost hello name. You need to pass like this. Once this application got started, start this application and try to access it. I just returned my class, nothing. I didn't went to event properties file, main method class, nothing. I just created project using STS and created this method. That's it. No additional configuration, nothing. Imagine for a simple example, how difficult earlier one is and how simple it is. Imagine in terms of project, how much, times, efforts it will save. Apart from the times and efforts, what I can say is how simplified it is. Even you need not to be expert to generate application now. You can just go there and create it. /hello and you can give a name. It is giving response back. Hello Ramesh. Hello Vijay. Like this. You all can access it. Yesterday also I given access to you, right? You can access it basically. To access it, we used NG and one more also I saw today. Let me pull that configuration for you. One more simple approach to give public access now. I found it. I'll give you that command, you can play around. Where is it? Simple. You need not to install any special software. serveo.net. This one is going to help you. If you are using Windows machine, no, give your port, whichever port you want to expose to public bus. I'll just open my command prompt. It given one endpoint to me without any hassles. You can access it. How can I access? Go to browser, access it. Name is equal to Acha, sorry. Hello is our endpoint, right? You can try, right? You can try this endpoint. You're also able to access it. This is public endpoint, okay? Publicly you can access our code. You are able to access. You able to see output?
Yes, sir.
So, just to show you how advanced Spring Boot I shown here and how Spring Boot taking care internally to imagine, I did this example here, okay? Otherwise, you see how IOC container is creating object. I have created my beans, IOC, into IOC container I was loading, then it is creating objects. Anyway, this is old approach. This is how we used to do. Why I am giving that idea also here, right? Going forward, when you use Spring Boot, you should have at least imagination how it is happening internally. Okay, so that's why a few examples I'll cover it in XML file approach, or how object is creating, how dependency injection we are performing. Then it will be easy to you in Spring Boot to imagine the things. Okay. Finally, the approach where what we learn and what we focus is Spring Boot only. In Spring Boot, everything we will learn.
Spring
But
Boot is kind of removing the dependency on initializing object, maintaining dependencies, maintaining that XML file.
yeah, correct, right? Dependencies, XML file, skeleton. We say, let's say if you are a junior developer, okay. If I ask you to, hey, please implement two registration forms, create one application. If you don't have boot, right, it will be very difficult to you. You need to depend on me or your lead that please create a web project, create a web.xml file with dispatcher servlet, add libraries into lib folder, create one XML file, load it via Spring Boot context listener.
So nowadays, most of projects will be developed using Spring Boot only
Boot
because
only,
it's
boot
easier.
only. Who will use that old approach? Well, nothing is stopping to you, right? When I mean, if it is a brand new project, people will not ask you even to touch that old approach. Okay, if you identify or if you see any old applications that are still running, any migration projects, right? Then you can maybe help them there if you know XML approach, right? Okay, this is how it will work. This is how beans created. This is how dependency injection performed. That you can imagine and explain. Just to imagine and explain itself, you should know how these beans are getting created in XML and all. That's why I'm giving this example.
In a real world scenario, like applications are still on the Spring Core, the legacy way. If they want to move to Spring Boot, how easy is to make the transition, sir?
Migration may not difficult. I will say you can lift shift them directly from old approach to new approach. If you identify, generally in old approach also they will create packages, right? Controller package, or you can say web package, repository package, service package. If they have configured in XML, I don't think after 2010 around or maybe 2013, 14 around onwards, annotations were available. So though it is a old approach also, they must have used some minimum annotations like controller service DAOs. So what you can do, simply you can remove XMLs, copy, lift, shift all the classes to Spring Boot application, create first a Spring Boot skeleton, shift them here, just move the configurations from XML to application properties file. That's it. You can start it. It will work.
So this will need to be done by developers like a manually only still, right? Spring Boot does not offer anything to like
No such.
migrate something like that.
No such. It's a customized. I mean, purely you need to customize it. Spring Boot. Spring Boot is a framework. It is not a tool to you to do that conversions, right?
Right.
It's not a big deal.
Okay.
Conversion of a old to new migration is not a big deal. I know what you are looking for, but as it is a framework, they are not focusing on such tools. Maybe you can use AI tools. You can ask copy XML. You know, I have here, right, one AI tool. So this is one XML file, right? I'm going to this Codium tool, Codium integrated. If you guys want, also let me know. Very helpful, okay? So I'm in Codium now, opening a fresh thread. I'll ask Codium, how you will convert this configuration to Spring Boot. See what it is saying. Done. Copy paste.
Yes. So this is available from STS itself, or you had to integrate this plugin, Codium?
I integrated it. If you go to plugin, Codium plugin, right? You just open Codium website, Codium Eclipse plugin, and drag and drop here. Codium Eclipse plugin. Just drag and drop into your STS ID. So okay, don't drag into XML, but now it is a plain window, right? See, just drag and drop. It will ask, do you want to install? You can select and install. As I have, I know what to do. So just confirm and go next, and finish. Okay. It is free open source.
That thing you showed us, like once you develop the application, you showed us you also exposed it as a public endpoint.
Exactly.
If you could now, not now, maybe down the line, if you could teach us how to.
Yeah.
do
So
that.
that's a simple command, right? I'm trying to use as such, right? Multiple commands.
Okay.
NG rock I tried yesterday, if you believe, if you remember.
Right.
Today I used a different approach. I'm also seeing what are all the ways that publicly I can expose static IP, dynamic IP. Maybe not related to Spring,
Yes, sir.
but essentially, if you want to make your own product, your own application, we are into a generation there. We have a lot of tools. You can implement your own projects, your own things, right? On your own, you can even implement AI applications and manage. We are into such generation. We should know all of them.
Yes, sir.
At least basic thing, right? As a mature developer, how I can expose my application. Not only development, right? You need to think from a deployment point of
Yes, sir.
routing point of view. Yeah. Okay. So it is simple. As I shown, right? We can play around each module and we can see its pros and cons. And the learning will be simple if you put just some focus here. That's it. Okay.
This video also will be available.
These demos will be available now. Thereafter, I'll be uploading them into my uh, drive and sharing it with you.
Okay.
And just a minute, let me stop sharing.